When I say I will lay down my life for Islam, it is not a slogan. It is not poetry. It is not a cry to stir emotions for a moment and then be forgotten. It is a truth that lives in the depth of every believer's heart, a truth born not from compulsion, but from love. Because Islam is not just a religion we follow, it is the soul we carry. It is the light that gives our lives meaning. Without it, we are bodies without direction, nations without dignity, and hearts without purpose. Islam is the rope that binds the oppressed together. It is the force that awakens courage in the heart of the weak. It is the strength that makes a mother bear her suffering with patience, that makes a youth stand against corruption, that makes a scholar sacrifice his comfort for the guidance of people, and that makes a soldier walk willingly toward martyrdom, not for power, not for recognition, but for Allah. For truth. For honor. This Islam is not just a collection of laws and commands, it is a living spirit. It enters every corner of life. It tells us how to love, how to build, how to resist, and how to die with dignity. When you understand Islam, when you truly allow it to live inside you, then you begin to see this world differently. You see injustice as something intolerable. You see arrogance as something shameful. You begin to feel a responsibility, not just for your own salvation, but for the protection of all that is sacred. This is why I say, I will lay down my life for Islam. Because I know that Islam gave me everything. It gave me identity. It gave me clarity in a world full of lies. It gave me peace in a world of chaos. And if something gives you everything, what would you not give in return? Look at the state of this world today. Morality is mocked. Greed is glorified. Tyranny wears the mask of democracy. And the voice of Islam is attacked not because it is violent, but because it refuses to bow down to the systems of falsehood. They don't fear our weapons, they fear our faith. They fear a Muslim who cannot be bought. They fear a youth who would rather die in dignity than live in humiliation. They fear a people who know that Islam is their soul. This is why they work day and night to corrupt our societies. They spread doubt in our beliefs, confusion in our hearts, and division in our ranks. They want Islam to become a decoration, something for the mosque, but not for life. They want it to become a private whisper, not a public declaration. But we will not let them take Islam from us. Not while we breathe. Not while we live. Not even if we have to die. I see in the eyes of our people, especially the youth, a readiness that cannot be described. A fire of faith that no enemy can extinguish. They do not fear death, because they love truth more than life. And this is what gives me strength. This is what makes me declare that Islam is alive and will remain alive as long as there are hearts that beat with this love. Our enemies think they can silence us with pressure. They think they can isolate us with sanctions. But what they do not understand is that Islam was born in hardship. It was raised in struggle. It flourished not in palaces, but in deserts. The Prophet did not build an empire with wealth, he built a nation with faith. And we are the inheritors of that same faith. So when I say I am ready to sacrifice my life for Islam, it is because I know what Islam is worth. It is because I have seen with my own eyes how a single verse of the Quran can heal a broken soul. How a single night of Qadr can wipe away years of darkness. How a single act of sincerity can change the fate of nations. This is not emotion, it is certainty. And I say this to every brother and sister who hears my words, if Islam lives in your heart, protect it with everything you have. Do not compromise it. Do not abandon it when the world mocks you. Wear it like armor. Carry it like light. Because one day, we will all stand before Allah. And on that day, what else will matter except that we lived for Him, we died for Him, and we never let His religion be dishonored. This is why I say it again, not as a slogan, but as a vow, I will lay down my life for Islam. When we speak of sacrifice in the path of Islam, we are not speaking in metaphors. We are referring to a reality written in the blood of the righteous, in the footsteps of the martyrs, in the sighs of grieving mothers who gave their sons for truth, and in the smiles of those who left this world with Labbaik Ya Hussein on their lips. The legacy of our martyrs is not something of the past, it is a living path. It is a path we walk today, with our heads held high, because they walked it before us with their lives given as gifts for the sake of Allah. From the hot sands of Karbala to the brutal front lines of resistance in our own time, there has always been one thing that made the enemy tremble. Not our numbers, not our wealth, but our willingness to die for a cause greater than ourselves. When a person becomes ready to sacrifice his life for truth, he becomes undefeatable. Because how do you defeat someone who does not fear death? How do you defeat someone whose victory lies not in survival, but in sacrifice? Imam Hussein, gave us this lesson in Karbala, not for history to admire, but for us to live. His companions were not saints in appearance, they were ordinary people in the eyes of the world, but extraordinary in loyalty and love for Allah. That night before Ashura, each of them could have left. The doors were open. Yet they stayed. Smiled. Prayed. And gave everything, knowing well what awaited them. And today, we mention their names with pride and tears, because their sacrifice made truth eternal. This is the same lesson carried by every martyr of the Islamic Revolution, every youth who stood before tanks with only faith in his heart, every resistance fighter who held his ground with the name of Allah on his tongue. These people didn't chase the world. They chased the pleasure of their Lord. And their blood became the ink of our survival. But what about us? What does this legacy mean for those of us still living? It means responsibility. It means inheritance. The martyrs gave their blood not so that we could live in comfort and forget them. No, they gave their lives so we could live in freedom and remember the mission. They planted the tree. Now it is our turn to carry the water, to protect it, to make it grow. And this protection is not always with a weapon. It is also with our voice, our choices, our resistance against sin, our fight against corruption, our efforts to spread knowledge and awaken hearts. Sometimes, in today's world, speaking the truth with courage is itself a form of martyrdom. Remaining pure in a corrupt society is a form of jihad. Raising a child who loves Ahlul-Bayt, who fears Allah, who stands for justice, that is a continuation of this legacy. Do not think the martyrs are gone. Their bodies may be buried, but their souls are alive. Their sacrifices echo in every movement for truth. They are our pride, our compass, our strength. When we feel weak, we remember them. When we feel tired, we remember their last breaths. And when we feel like giving up, we remember they never did, not even in their final moments. This is why we say, we do not mourn our martyrs with despair, we honor them with action. We do not envy their sacrifice, we pray to be worthy of it. We do not see them as distant heroes, we see them as brothers who led the way and handed the torch to us. And we must never let that torch go dark. Let every believer ask themselves, what will I say to the martyrs when I meet them? Will I say I lived in their shadow and did nothing? Or will I say I tried to continue what you began? That I lived not in fear, but in remembrance. That I spoke the truth when it was dangerous. That I stood for Islam when it was mocked. That I did not forget your blood, nor betray your cause. We must teach our children not just to admire martyrs, but to understand them. To know what they stood for. To live their values. To carry the Quran and the flag of justice wherever they go. So that, one day, when our names are spoken, the next generation will say, they were not just alive, they lived for truth. And so, I say with clarity, with love, with certainty, the legacy of the martyrs is alive, and by Allah, we will not let it die. The world we live in today is not neutral. It is not a place where truth and falsehood are allowed to compete fairly. No. This world is dominated by powers who fear Islam not because they misunderstand it, but because they know exactly what it stands for. Islam threatens their thrones, not with violence, but with justice. It threatens their systems, not with chaos, but with clarity. It is not bombs or bullets they fear, it is the voice of truth that refuses to kneel. That is why the battle against global arrogance is not just political. It is spiritual. It is ideological. It is a battle that demands more than just speeches, it demands hearts that are loyal to the very end. When we talk about global arrogance, we are speaking about those forces who seek to control humanity through lies, division, and fear. They spread wars, impose economic control, distort values, and call it peace. They occupy lands, oppress nations, humiliate cultures, and call it liberation. And what stands in their way? A people who refuse to be bought. A people who live by divine principles. A people whose faith cannot be shaken by propaganda or pressure. That is Islam. And the moment Islam rises with strength, with clarity, with unity, they tremble. Why? Because Islam produces individuals who cannot be owned. It gives birth to leaders who are not puppets. It builds societies that resist exploitation. This is why the fight against Islam is global, aggressive, and relentless. They call it extremism, they call it backwardness, they call it terrorism, but what they are really attacking is independence, dignity, and truth. We must understand that defending Islam today is not a passive act. It is not enough to pray and retreat. Our loyalty to Islam must become visible. It must challenge oppression. It must defend the oppressed. And it must hurt us when our faith is mocked, when our brothers are massacred, when our sacred values are trampled in the name of freedom. What will it take to stand in this battle? It will take courage. It will take clarity. It will take sacrifice. But above all, it will take loyalty. Unshakable loyalty. A loyalty that cannot be bought, cannot be silenced, and cannot be distracted. A loyalty that speaks when others remain quiet. A loyalty that stands tall even when we are surrounded. And yes, a loyalty that is willing to lay down its life for the sake of Allah. This loyalty is not blind. It is not foolish. It is born from faith. From knowing that this life is not the end. That death in the path of truth is not loss, it is victory. The enemies of Islam invest billions to make our youth chase distractions. They drown them in entertainment, in temptations, in false dreams. Why? So that they never wake up. So that they never realize that their lives are meant for something greater than consumption. But once a heart becomes loyal to Allah, the schemes of the world no longer impress it. The games of the enemy no longer deceive it. Such a heart becomes a fortress. And these hearts, these believers, are the true soldiers of Islam in our time. They may be teachers, farmers, students, parents, but inside, they carry the fire of resistance. We must teach our youth this truth: to be Muslim is to be a soldier of light in a world full of darkness. It is to carry the Quran as a guide, and to be ready to defend its message with everything we have. If we are silent, falsehood will speak. If we are weak, injustice will rule. But if we stand, even if alone, truth will find its voice. This is why we say, Islam is not just a personal belief, it is a responsibility. And in the face of global arrogance, it must be defended with honor, with wisdom, and with sacrifice. Not just through words, but through lives that refuse to compromise. And so I say to every believer, remain loyal. No matter the pressure. No matter the lies. No matter the isolation. Remain loyal to the truth, to the Prophet's path, to the Quran's call. Let the world know, we will not sell our faith. We will not trade our dignity. And if the price of standing for Islam is our life, then we are ready. In every age, when the future of Islam has hung in the balance, it was not the old or the scholars alone who carried its weight, it was the youth. It was the young hearts, fearless and unshaken, that stood up when others sat down. And today, once again, the youth stand at the front line of Islam's survival. This is not merely a poetic thought. It is a divine truth witnessed throughout history. From the companions of the Prophet, many of whom were young, to the warriors of Karbala, to the brave defenders of the Islamic Revolution, youth have always been the engine of awakening, the protectors of honor, and the soul of resistance. In this time of confusion, when truth is painted as extremism and sin is sold as freedom, the youth must become the eyes and the voice of Islam. Their role is not small, nor is it secondary. It is central. Because while the enemies of Islam may fear our words, what they fear even more is an awakened youth. A youth that prays at dawn. A youth that reads the Quran with tears. A youth that lowers their gaze in a world addicted to shamelessness. A youth that chooses martyrdom over humiliation. This youth is what keeps Islam alive. The systems of global arrogance spend billions to corrupt the Muslim youth. They flood our phones, our screens, and our minds with filth, confusion, and doubt. Why? Because they know that if they break the youth, they break the future. If they steal your time, they steal your destiny. If they numb your heart, they silence your potential. But you, dear youth, are not weak. You are not a victim. You were created by Allah with a mission. You are the hope of this ummah, and your existence terrifies those who wish to bury Islam under materialism and lies. Look around the world. See how the youth are rising. In Gaza, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iran, in Iraq, in Nigeria, in Pakistan, in every corner where the call of Ya Mahdi and Labbaik Ya Hussein echoes through the air. These youth may have little in their pockets, but their hearts are filled with faith. They may be hungry, but they are not humiliated. They may fall in battle, but they rise in eternity. And it is their example that should inspire every one of us to ask, what am I doing with my youth? Your youth is not a time for wasting. It is a treasure. A test. And a tool. Use it for Allah, and you will see how He uses you for greatness. You are not too young to serve Islam. You are not too young to wake up for far. You are not too young to speak out against oppression. You are not too young to memorize the Quran. You are not too young to fall in love with a lowbait. You are not too young to live with purpose and die with honor. The West wants you to think that to be young means to be careless. But Islam teaches you that to be young is to be powerful. That your purity is your strength. That your dua can shake the heavens. That your tears in the night are more valuable than gold. That your silence before sin is more rebellious than any protest. And your presence in the masjid is a louder statement than any chant. I look at the youth of our ummah and I see potential that terrifies our enemies. I see minds that can defeat propaganda. I see hands that can build a just future. I see hearts that will carry the banner of the Mahdi, not in dreams, but in preparation. The one who prepares is the one who will be chosen. And the one who waits in laziness will be left behind. Dear youth, never say, what can I do? Instead ask, what more can I give? And when you give your time, your energy, your dreams for the sake of Islam, know that you are not losing, you are investing in the hereafter. Every moment you give to Allah is recorded. Every temptation you resist is honored. Every truth you stand for is engraved in the book of the brave. And so I say to every young man, every young woman listening today, the path ahead will not be easy. But you were not created for ease. You were created for greatness. And the greatest honor is to be part of the army of truth in the age of deception. Let the enemies of Islam hear it loud and clear, we are not afraid. We are not ashamed. We are ready. And if the defense of Islam requires our life, then our youth is not too precious to give for Allah.